So this is lesson 9 part 2 of White versus the Sicilian. This is the dragon variation. So here we have White's third move, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. We should meet the dragon headlong with direct attacking play that pays no regard to reputation. With this in mind, the best recipe is to castle queenside and rampage on the king side. The basic setup we are aiming for as White is reached after the further moves bishop e3 and bishop g7. So now what if Black plays knight g4, trying to disrupt White's build-up? This is a howler after bishop b5 check. When bishop d7, queen takes g4, costs Black a piece. Now Black has also been known to try here a6, which combines the dragon with the Nxd4 to create a Dragodorf. Here's an interesting response by White. f3, knight b d7, queen d2, bishop g7, g4, b5, g5, taking advantage of the fact that the black knight on f6 is blocked from retreating to d7. Knight h5, a4. As the black knight is shut out of the game on h5, White decides that he can play actively on both sides of the board. B takes a4, rook takes a4, bishop b7, knight b3, castles, bishop e2, f5. How else to get counterplay? Knight a5, queen c7, knight takes b7, queen takes b7, queen d5 check, queen takes d5, knight takes d5, and White has won the endgame thanks to the hapless knight on h5. And this was a game of Modiaki versus Williams. So let's go back some to bishop g7. And now f3. Now, however, it is worth White investing a move to prevent knight g4. The pawn on f3 also supports the future g2 to g4 advance. Knight c6, queen d2, castles, White castles queenside. White has developed his pieces in a solid formation in the center, with the knight on d4 protected no less than 3 times, and quite rightly so, as it is the bulwark against Black's famous dragon bishop on g7. There are no holes in White's pawn structure, and his king is safe. Still, he might take time out to play king b1, which removes his king from the semi-open c-file and protects the a2 pawn a second time. White's plan, against zero resistance, is to use his h-pawn and g-pawn to pry open the h-file and give mate. This could involve such moves as g2 to g4, and h2 to h4, and h4 then to h5, followed by h5 takes g6, when we assume that Black will recapture with f7 takes g6, and then bishop h6, bishop takes g6, answered by king takes g7. I hope you guys can follow this alright. Queen h6 check, knight d5, knight takes f6 check, and queen takes f7 check. Whew. This is of course easier said than done. For example, as soon as White plays bishop h6, he is weakening his protection of the knight on d4, which might give Black the chance for a counterblow in the center. And what of black's counterplay on the queenside, based on either rook to c8 or queen to a5? Or how about a queenside pawn advance? Or perhaps all three of these ideas at once? Furthermore, black might try to pry open the center with d6 to d5. So things are by no means simple for white, which explains why a lot of players find the dragon attractive as black. Nevertheless, if white does play precisely, he has a greater winning chance than against an open Sicilian, an opening like the Sicilian Taimanov or the Caro-Kann. After white plays the queenside castle, we'll consider three responses for black. So now, castles, queenside castles, and the first one. Knight takes d4. Now, this is crushed in by a game by Georgiev Ward. Not sure what that means. So now a different response would be bishop to d7, and this is dealt with by D. Fermion Blaise. And the third one we'll look at is d5, and this is the subject of Adams' Rocha. Now, against other moves, you can just get on with the business of mating the black king with g2, g4, and h2, h4, etc. In fact, if black plays too passively, you might be able to dispense with the preliminary g2, g4 move and play a fast h2, h4, h5 as a sacrifice. Then, if knight f6 takes h5 in reply, g2 to g4 kicks the knight back to f6, when bishop h6, etc. should force a quick decision on the h-file. As will be seen, a kingside pawn storm is a fundamental part of white's strategy. Black is often willing to make concessions elsewhere to buy off the attack. For example, he might aim to break up the center with d6, d5, or give up the exchange with rook c8 and then rook takes c3. In that case, he is willing to play an endgame the exchange down, trusting in his compact pawn formation to see him through.